Hello, people, and we have to discuss something that is looking more and more likely to happen, and that is Donald Trump's tariffs may be declared illegal, and he would have to remove them and perhaps even pay all those tariff money back to the people that he actually tariffed. Um, in the hearing, Chief Justice Roberts, which is a conservative on the court, had a lot of reservations and skepticism that the President of the United States can wield Congress's ability to actually tax. Because he basically said that the power to actually tax resides solely within Congress. Brett Kavanaugh, another conservative justice, seemed to more or less side with Trump or trying to go that way because he said, Nixon was able to do it in the 60s and Congress let him do it. So maybe Trump has the power to do that. Now, the deciding vote might come down to Justice Barrett, and I'm not really sure whether Amy Coney Barrett, which way she will vote. I don't know if she's given much of an indication, but several of the justices, both conservative and liberal, have a lot of reservations about the Trump presidency being able to wield universal import taxes. And the thing is, you can do targeted taxes towards sectors like the tax with China and like chips and stuff like that. That's perfectly fine. But you can't do overall universal taxes as the president. You have to go through Congress. Some people are like, well, why doesn't he just go through Congress? Because Republicans basically do whatever he wants. Not exactly. He's been pushing for the GOP to use the nuclear option to end the government shutdown, and they're not really wanting to do that because if they do, they can probably kiss their careers goodbye because most of the American public, something like 72%, are in favor of extending the ACA credits, and they don't want to be the ones to be blamed for the ACA credits basically expiring. So they have their jobs to actually think about as well. And the tariffs are pretty unpopular with the American populace. So if he tries to go through Congress to impose the same tariffs, certain people, farmers, are going to be very much against that, and they make up a lot of the Republican base. So if the GOP congressmen actually vote to impose the same tariffs that Donald Trump has, then they can pretty much kiss their job goodbye because they are not going to be voted back in. Right now, based on yesterday night's elections, the midterms are already looking really bloody for the Republicans. They obviously don't want to add more to that by having to directly vote for tariffs via Congress themselves. So they might not be on board with Donald Trump's plan in that case. And so the tariffs might actually be rolled back because right now it does seem that most people think that the tariffs are going to be declared illegal. I still give it a 50-50 shot, but if you look at the prediction markets on Polymarket, people are only giving a 30% chance for the Supreme Court to actually vote in favor of Trump's tariffs. And on Kalshi, it's not that much better. It's also around 30%. So this could create a big mess. So the question is, will it immediately bring crypto up? Because, no more tariffs, less uncertainty. You can cut rates more because there won't be inflation due to tariffs. Will that actually happen? I think in the long run, not having tariffs will definitely benefit crypto. But in the short run, I don't think so because I think things are going to be extremely messy in the short run in this regard. Because, there's going to be countries that basically want their money back because the tariffs were illegal. But here's the thing. Most people the people that pay the tariffs are not actually, the people that pay the tariffs are not actually those countries. They're American companies that are importing from those countries. So you would have to pay the money back to the companies. But wait just a minute. A lot of those companies did pass their costs on to the U.S. consumer. So we're the ones paying the tariffs ultimately. But it's very hard to differentiate how much of that cost X company passed on to the consumer. So the companies might eventually get the check, but we might not actually see any of that money. But that would actually give Trump an excuse to give us a large stimulus, which I hope he actually does, despite the fact that would actually create a ton of inflation later on. But we'll worry about that later. So I do think it would create a lot of initial confusion in the crypto market, at least for a couple of months. And Trump won't be just basically done if Congress or if the Supreme Court says no, you can't impose tariffs, he will find other ways to impose it. So I think for like the next year, year and a half, you're going to see a lot of tumultuous events happening in the United States if they get declared illegal, and him trying to find legal presidential ways without going through Congress to actually levy the tariffs that he wants. And he might not be able to levy all the tariffs, but he can probably focus on levying like certain sectional tariffs, basically to make the economy essentially go haywire, because the economy doesn't actually know how it's actually going to end up. So it actually might result in a market that has a lot of chaos and uncertainty for the next 12 to 18 months as he tries to impose some of these tariffs back in a different way. And you know, based on Donald Trump, that's what he's going to do. He's not just going to be like, okay, the Supreme Court declared my tariffs illegal. All right, I'm just going to abide by that rule and not impose tariffs. He's going to be like, well, I want my tariffs. So what can we do to get those tariffs without actually having to go through Congress? Because Congress is probably not going to pass my tariffs because there's going to be at least a couple of Republicans that don't agree with it because it damages basically their standing, especially the rural Republican representatives. It damages their standing with their constituents. And if you impose tariffs on farmers, those farmers are not going to vote for them back. So they're obviously looking out for their job as well. So it's going to be like, I think like in the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to be like one small tariff after another. Just when you think things have settled down, Trump's going to be like, okay, we're tariffing this again. And then, of course, you'll see the counterattack from other countries as well. So it's going to be tit for tat for 12 to 18 months in a row. And then it's probably all going to finally settle down towards the end of Trump's campaign, or at least towards the last year of Trump's campaign. But that means a very, very rocky road ahead. And it's a road where a giant pump may not actually be all that easy, because obviously if you have a ton of uncertainty in the market and you're getting new tariffs like, every other week, the market is not going to react well to that. So basically, like I would say for the next year, year and a half, if the tariffs are declared illegal, and the Supreme Court will rule on that before June, hopefully they'll have something by Thanksgiving. But with the government shutdown and everything, I'm not really sure if they can get it before Thanksgiving or Christmas. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in the next year, year and a half, I bet, if these taxes are going to be illegal. If they get ruled legal, we'll at least have some certainty, like on which direction we can actually go, even though it won't be good certainty, but markets can actually plan for what's actually ahead with increasing prices and all that. If they get ruled illegal, I feel like, people at first are going to be happy until he starts introducing these piecemeal tariffs. And then companies are going to be like a little haywire on like, okay, is he going to tariff us or is he not going to? How much are we going to have to pay? How much are we not going to have to pay? Do we have to increase costs or do we have to not increase costs? Because you know that Trump isn't just going to admit defeat on this tariff issue and like basically go home. He's going to try to impose as many as he can. And many of these will be a multi-step process because there obviously are judicial and congressional controls on what the president can do, especially if his party actually loses control of Congress next year in the midterms. I can promise you that if these tariffs get declared illegal early next year, he won't have reinstated all of them by the end of next year. He'll have reinstated maybe a few of them, and then Congress is going to kind of fight him on those that he did reinstate, and he's going to try to push Congress all he can, but he won't actually have control of Congress, so it's going to be much, much harder. So I see just a ton of uncertainty that he's going to push. Maybe there's going to be some pushback. Maybe some people are actually going to sue, and then there's lawsuits over and over again until until the end of his term. There's not going to be too much certainty in the economic market. So that's why I think actually declaring the tariffs illegal is not a big win situation for the crypto market or even for the stock market, because markets like uncertainty, and there's actually more certainty if the tariffs get declared legal, although there's going to be a big burden in terms of inflation and also tariff-driven prices if that happens. So I actually in the next couple of years, I don't actually see a good ramp off of this, because for a good ramp off of this, once the tariffs get declared legal, Donald Trump would basically have to say, okay, we're not doing tariffs anymore. I accept the court ruling and I'm going to abide by the court ruling. But based on the history of the Trump administration, especially during this term, I'm almost 100% sure that's not what's going to happen. he's not going to care too much about the court ruling, and he's going to try to find roundabout ways to do his tariffs. So I'm not really sure, like based on crypto, which way I want the decision to go. Overall, I hope the tariffs do get overturned, but crypto might actually do better even with tariffs in a more, I guess, predictable environment, assuming he doesn't do something else, which obviously I can't say he won't. But let's assume for this scenario that he doesn't do anything else crazy, because we don't want him to, and the tariffs are the only variable. In that scenario, I'm actually not sure which would actually be better. My guess is like it might actually be better for the crypto market, assuming nothing else happens, that they keep the tariffs and people just plan around the tariffs, rather than like having the next 12 to 18 months being like, I don't know what the hell's going on, he could tariff, he could not, and the companies just kind of make stuff up on the fly based on what Trump feels like in the morning. So that's kind of my analysis. Let me know what you think. Like and subscribe, hit that bell notifications button. Thank you, and have a nice day.